All right, objective 2.03. Students will be able to find the midpoint in the coordinate plane. I think you'll like this objective. I think you'll find that it makes a lot of sense and that it comes pretty naturally to you. The do now. Determine the length of line segment CD in simplest radical form with endpoints at C 3, -3 and D -5, -11. When we say simplest radical form, we mean don't turn the square root into a decimal. Leave it as the most simple square root you can. And remember that this line above CD with no arrows means line segment, meaning it has a beginning point and an ending point. Okay, so you're gonna see me draw a sketch of this, or you're gonna see that I did draw a sketch of this, so that's here. So if I go to -5, -11, and I plot a point, and if I go to 3, -3 and plot a point, I'm thinking about how long this diagonal is. That's what I want to find. And how far up do I need to go? So I look at the y value from -11 to -3, and that says go up 8. Now to see how far to the right we need to go, look at the x value, and we go from x equal -5 to x equal +3. So we go across 5 units and then 3 more units, and that's 8. So up 8 and right 8. So now we use Pythagorean theorem and say that this diagonal squared equals the move up squared plus the move right squared. Now we'll add them together, we'll square them. I don't really like the order that I wrote this in, so I'm going to erase here real quick. Thanks for your patience on this. I didn't do anything wrong, just making sure we're clear here. So we have 8 square is 64, and then 8 more square is 64, and it says we need to add them. So we'll say 64 plus 64, that equals 128, and this is still CD squared. Now we find out what CD is by taking the square root of both sides, and that's what this is, the square root of 128. Factor 128, looking for duplicates, and we find them with 8 times 8. 8 comes outside the radical, 2 stays under the radical, and this distance is 8 times the square root of 2 units. And this is what we mean by simplest radical form. We made this number the smallest it could be, but we did not change it to a decimal. All right, what is half of the length of CD? Well, we just need to remember that when we are going to multiply or divide a number with a radical, we should focus for now on the number on the outside. So 1/2 times CD is 1/2 times 8 radical 2. We'll do 1/2 times 8 is 4 radical 2. Or another way, instead of multiplying by 1/2, we could say we're dividing by 2. And again, we would say 8 divided by 2 is 4. Then the square root of 2 is still there. We don't touch it. What's next? Oh, it's a quadratic. All right. And this quadratic has a value greater than 1. So be careful on this one. There are a lot of students who are great when we just have a 1 here, but then they make a mistake when the number changes. So just be careful here. So this quadratic needs to be equal to 0 for us to factor it, and we don't need to do anything to make it equal to 0 because that's given in the problem. So now we're thinking about a times c equals -14, and b equals 5. So we're thinking about numbers that multiply to -14 and add to 5. So we're thinking about 7 and 2, and which one needs to be negative? 2 should be negative so that when we add them we get +5. So here's what this looks like. So we have 2x squared minus 2x, coming from this -2, plus 7x minus 7. Now cover the second part, focus on the front. and see that you can factor out 2 and factor out x. So factor out 2x, and you're left with x minus 1. You can double check that by, in your brain, just distributing back. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times minus 1 is minus 2x. And then remember that if you do this right, then you're going to have x minus 1 in parentheses here in the when you work with this other group. So now we'll focus on the 7x minus 7, looking for its greatest common factor. And you can see that that is 7. We can undistribute, we can take out positive 7. And we're left with x minus 1. So now factor from the outside, 2x plus 7. Factor from the inside, x minus 1, So we have 2x plus 7 times x minus 1 equals 0. We set those factors equal to 0 and solve for x. Don't do magic, do math. Here I did the math in my head, I didn't show it. X equals negative 7 over 2 and x equals positive 1. And you just did a great job on that do now. I want to emphasize the importance of this quadratic stuff. In the next week we are going to have to deal with more quadratic again. It's not going to get harder, but it's not going away either. So we just have to be ready to improve and do it.